The night was cold, the city lights flickered like tiny stars, and the world felt like a place of endless possibilities, yet for Ethan Carter, success had turned into a lonely road. He leaned against the massive window of his penthouse, looking down at the city that once felt like a dream, but now seemed empty. A billionaire at 30, he had everything a man could ask for: money, power, luxury. But deep inside, there was an ache, a hollow space no amount of wealth could fill. Ethan wasn't always like this. He was born in a small town where dreams seemed like a distant fantasy. His father was a factory worker, his mother a part-time waitress, and every day was a struggle to survive. As a child, he watched his parents sacrifice their happiness just to put food on the table. He swore to himself one day he would break free from this life, and he did. Years of sleepless nights, endless work, and ruthless decisions led him to the top. But at what cost? That evening, he received a call that pulled him out of his thoughts. It was from the hospital. His mother had fallen sick, and she needed immediate care. Without wasting a second, he grabbed his keys and rushed out, his expensive suit and designer watch feeling meaningless in that moment. The hospital smelled of antiseptic and quiet desperation. Ethan walked through the hallways, his heart pounding, not out of fear, but out of something else, something he hadn't felt in a long time. That's when he saw her. Amelia, the nurse attending to his mother. She wasn't just another face in the crowd. There was something about her, an aura of warmth, a kindness that felt real in a world where everything seemed staged. She barely glanced at him as she adjusted the IV drip. "She's stable now, but she needs care and rest," Amelia said, her voice soft yet firm. Ethan nodded, but his eyes stayed on her for a moment longer. She was different. She wasn't intimidated by his presence, nor did she try to impress him. She was just herself. That night, as he sat by his mother's bedside, he kept thinking about Amelia. Not in a way he had thought about other women, those who chased him for his wealth, those who saw him as an opportunity. Amelia was nothing like them. She was real, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt something unexpected. A spark. The next morning, Ethan returned to the hospital, telling himself it was only to check on his mother, but deep down, he knew there was another reason. Her, Amelia, the woman who had unknowingly left an imprint on his mind. As he walked into the hospital room, he found his mother awake, smiling weakly at him. "You should get some rest too, Ethan," she said, her voice filled with motherly concern. "Working all the time isn't good for you." Ethan forced a small smile. He had heard this before, but he never really listened. Work had always been his escape from emotions, from loneliness, from memories of the past. Just then, the door opened, and Amelia walked in. Her presence felt effortless, like a quiet breeze that somehow managed to calm everything around her. She checked his mother's vitals, her hands gentle yet skilled. Ethan watched her closely, the way she spoke softly to his mother, the way she seemed to genuinely care. It was rare to see someone so selfless. "You're back," Amelia said, looking at him for the first time. He straightened up slightly. "Of course, my mother's here." Amelia raised an eyebrow, a small smirk playing on her lips. "Most people in your position would have sent assistants or private doctors instead of coming themselves." Ethan wasn't sure if it was a compliment or a quiet challenge. Either way, it intrigued him. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Maybe I'm not like most people," he said, holding her gaze. For a second, Amelia's expression softened, but she quickly looked away, returning to her work. "Well, your mother is lucky to have you," she said simply. Something about her made Ethan want to keep the conversation going. But before he could say anything else, she was gone, leaving behind a strange feeling in his chest. As days passed, Ethan found himself coming back to the hospital more often than necessary. His mother's health was improving, yet he kept finding reasons to visit, and each time Amelia was there, calm, kind, and completely unaffected by his wealth or reputation. She treated him like any other visitor, never showing an ounce of admiration or interest in his money. It was frustrating and fascinating. One evening, as he stood by the hospital's coffee machine, he saw her again, this time off duty. She had her hair down, wearing casual clothes, looking even more breathtaking in her simplicity. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, handing her a cup of coffee before she could get one herself. She raised an eyebrow, taking the cup cautiously. And why's that? Ethan smirked. Because you don't seem like the kind of person who stays in one place longer than necessary. Amelia chuckled, shaking her head. I could say the same about you, Mr. Carter. For the first time in a long time, Ethan laughed, genuinely. She was something else, and he knew, deep down, that he was already in trouble. Because for the first time it wasn't about the chase. It wasn't about the thrill. It was about her. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan found himself drawn to Amelia in ways he couldn't explain. She was nothing like the women he had encountered before. She didn't flatter him, didn't care about his wealth, and most importantly, she wasn't trying to impress him. It was a strange feeling, not being treated like the billionaire Ethan Carter, but simply as a man. And he liked it. Maybe too much. One evening, he found himself sitting on a hospital bench beside her, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. He had never noticed a sunset in years, not like this, not with someone who made the world feel peaceful. You're here again, Amelia said, sipping the coffee he had brought her. Ethan smirked. Maybe I like hospital coffee. She chuckled, shaking her head. No one likes hospital coffee. He turned to her, his gaze steady. Maybe I just like the company that comes with it. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes. She looked away, playing with the rim of her cup. Ethan, you don't have to do this. Do what? He asked, tilting his head. Whatever this is, she said, finally meeting his gaze. I know your type, you're used to getting what you want. But I'm not someone you can just chase for a while and forget. Ethan's smirk faded. He had heard people assume things about him before, but for the first time, it stung. Because Amelia wasn't wrong. He was used to people being temporary. But this time, it was different. I don't know what you think about me, he said, his voice softer now. But I'm not playing games, Amelia. She sighed, shaking her head. Even if I believe that, we're from two different worlds, Ethan. You're a billionaire. I'm a nurse struggling to pay my rent. What could possibly connect us? Ethan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Maybe the fact that you're the only person who looks at me like I'm not a billionaire. Maybe the fact that for the first time in years, I feel like a real person when I'm with you. Amelia didn't reply. Instead, she stared at him, as if trying to find the truth in his words. And maybe, just maybe, she saw it. But just when Ethan thought he was getting closer to her, something happened that changed everything. That night, a scandal broke out in the news. Ethan's company was under attack. A leaked report accused him of unethical business practices, of crushing small businesses to build his empire. His name was everywhere, his reputation dragged through the mud, and just like that, the man who had everything was now on the verge of losing it all. But the real question was, would Amelia still look at him the same way? Ethan sat in his office, his jaw clenched as the news played on the massive screen in front of him. Reporters dissected his empire like vultures, throwing accusations, questioning his ethics, and speculating whether this was the downfall of the billionaire, who once seemed untouchable. His phone buzzed endlessly, lawyers, investors, business partners, everyone demanding answers. But there was only one call he cared about, one person he wanted to hear from. Amelia, but she didn't call. Frustrated, he grabbed his coat and stormed out of the office, ignoring his assistant's questions. He needed to see her. He needed to know if she still saw him as the man he was before the world decided to tear him apart. When he arrived at the hospital, he found her in the break room, her eyes glued to the news on the tiny TV mounted on the wall. She looked up, startled. Ethan. The way she said his name, soft, cautious, sent an unfamiliar ache through him. Was it doubt? Hesitation? You didn't call, he said, stepping closer. She swallowed hard, crossing her arms. I didn't know what to say. Then say what you're thinking, he urged, searching her face for the answer he was afraid to hear. Amelia exhaled slowly. Is it true? Did you really destroy small businesses just to build your empire? Ethan's chest tightened. He wasn't innocent, not entirely. He had made ruthless business decisions, taken risks that others wouldn't. But he had never deliberately crushed anyone. I did what I had to do to survive in this world, he admitted, his voice raw. But I'm not the villain they're painting me to be. Amelia studied him, her expression unreadable. I want to believe that. Then believe it, he said, his voice breaking slightly. You see me, Amelia. The real me, and I need you to trust that I'm not the monster they say I am. She hesitated, and in that moment, Ethan felt fear, not of losing his wealth, but of losing her. After a long silence, she finally spoke. I need time, Ethan. I need to understand what's real and what's not. It wasn't the answer he wanted, but it was an answer. He nodded, stepping back. Take all the time you need. Just don't walk away from me. She didn't promise anything, and that terrified him more than any business deal ever had. The days that followed were a nightmare. Ethan's company was in crisis, the media was relentless, and investors were pulling back. He had built an empire from nothing, but now, everything was slipping through his fingers. Yet the only loss that truly haunted him was Amelia's hesitation. She hadn't shut him out completely, but she kept her distance. She answered his messages, but they were short. She listened when he spoke, but she didn't look at him the same way. It was as if a wall had risen between them, one that he wasn't sure how to break. Ethan wasn't a man who gave up easily, and he wouldn't start now. Determined, he launched his own investigation. If someone had set him up, he would find out who. He worked day and night, reviewing contracts, emails and financial records, and then he found it. A leak. A manipulated report. Someone inside his company had fabricated data, making it look like Ethan had deliberately shut down smaller businesses when in reality, he had offered them buyouts. It was a betrayal from within, and he knew exactly who was behind it. That evening, he called Amelia. Meet me, he said. Please. She hesitated before agreeing. When she arrived at his penthouse, she was cautious, as if unsure of what to expect. Ethan wasted no time. He handed her the files, letting her read the truth for herself. I needed you to see this, he said. I'm not perfect, Amelia, but I would never destroy people just for profit. Someone set me up. She read through the documents, her expression shifting from doubt to realization. When she finally looked up, her eyes held something he hadn't seen in days. Belief. Ethan, she whispered, guilt flickering across her face. I should have trusted you. He stepped closer, his voice softer now. I didn't just want your trust, Amelia. I needed it, because you're the only person in my life who makes me feel like more than just a billionaire. You see the man behind all of this. Tears welled in her eyes, and for the first time she didn't hold back. She reached for him, and in that moment, Ethan knew he had won the only battle that truly mattered, her heart. As he held her close, he whispered, no more doubts, no more distance, just us. And this time she didn't pull away. With Amelia back by his side, Ethan felt like he could finally breathe again, but he wasn't done yet. Whoever had betrayed him had nearly cost him everything, his reputation, his company, and the one person who truly mattered. And Ethan Carter wasn't a man who forgave easily. Within a week, his legal team uncovered everything. The culprit, Daniel Whitmore, his own senior executive, a man he had once trusted. Daniel had been secretly working with a rival corporation, leaking false reports to frame Ethan and force him out of his own empire. But Ethan was always 2 steps ahead. He called a press conference, where he exposed Daniel's betrayal, presenting undeniable proof. The media, once eager to tear him down, now turned on the real villain. Within hours, Daniel was arrested for fraud, and Ethan's name was cleared. But despite reclaiming his power, there was only one thing left to do. 1 month later, Ethan stood outside Amelia's small apartment, holding a single red rose. He could have sent a driver, could have invited her to his penthouse, but tonight, he wanted to be just a man in love, not a billionaire. When she opened the door, her eyes widened in surprise. Ethan, what are you doing here? He smiled, offering her the rose. Taking a risk. She took the flower, tilting her head. A risk. He exhaled, his voice steady but filled with emotion. I spent my whole life chasing success, thinking it would make me happy. But happiness wasn't in the billions I made. It was in the small things, like watching the sunset with you, hearing you laugh, knowing that even in my worst moments, you never really left. Amelia's breath hitched, her eyes glistening with tears. He took her hand, his heart racing. I don't want to spend another second without you, Amelia. I don't care about the differences between our worlds. The only thing that matters is you. So will you take a risk on me too? For a moment, she just stared at him. Then, slowly, a tear slipped down her cheek, But this time, it wasn't from doubt, it was from happiness. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times, yes. Ethan pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the most precious thing in the world, and for the first time in his life, he knew he had found something money could never buy. True love.